Welcome to the San Clemente Podcast, the only local podcast in the best beach town in the world. We're here to bring you weekly episodes highlighting everything from sports, culture, entertainment, politics, and everything else this beach town has to offer. Welcome to the San Clemente Podcast, the number one podcast in the best beach town in the world. My name is Jeff Moore. Today, my co-host and I, Brian De La Puente, are very excited about an amazing guest we have on. We've been talking about bringing just huge inspirational figures in the community here in San Clemente. So today we are very, very excited to welcome Coach Ortiz to our podcast. Coach Ortiz, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you being here. It's been fun.
Yep, absolutely. So we talked a little bit before the show about kind of your journey as a coach, and I know Brian and I have a ton of questions, also a lot of history with Coach Ortiz. I mean, we go back 20 plus years, which is crazy. And I know I was just paying you compliments about how you've aged younger somehow.
That's debatable. But.
So no, really just, the flow of the podcast is just the same conversation we were having before. So
perfect.
Let's start off and walk us through your journey on how you started at San Clemente High School.
All right. So, this is my 31st year of coaching total. I came to San Clemente in 2000. My high school head coach was Eric Patton, and he was the head coach there in 1999, and I came over in 2000 as a defensive coordinator. Before that, I coached at Capistrano Valley and also at Elisa Niguel. Came over in 2000, had the privilege of coaching both you guys, and along with some other great players. And a lot of the coaches that were on staff at that time were also coaches that I had in high school, like Joe Wood and Ken Goldstone and Jim Berg and Cam Lawyer. And so it's kind of like a real family atmosphere when I first got to San Clemente in 2000. And for me, that first year, I went to the homecoming parade. I heard all about it, had never seen it. And I remember sitting on the window sill over at Carbonars at that time. And I watched the parade, and I watched the players, I watched the floats, the mayor, the principal, everybody. And I saw the city kind of shut down and support not just football, but all athletic teams and special programs we have at San Clemente High School. And I kind of felt like this is the only place I want to be. And it was something that I found very unique, of a kind of a hometown atmosphere and old school Texas football. Sure. And we had some really good athletes at San Clemente High School. In 2000, kind of made a commitment to stay there, and here we are 24 years later.
Dang, that's wild. Do they still do those dinners?
Yes, yeah.
So is that a Thursday night thing, or?
We do for our team meals on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, like when we have our go down Del Mar with the football team on homecoming, we'll either go to Cotton's or we'll go to Daly's. Joey Madison over at Fratello's is a big sponsor of our program, and he does a lot of our pregame meals as well. And so it's kind of a unique thing for our kids, but I definitely, when we have the homecoming parade, it's important for our kids to understand this doesn't happen at a lot of different places. This is something special, unique, and embrace the opportunity that you have. And for them, it's a reaffirmation of how special the community is and how special the role is within that community.
That's amazing. This podcast is something that, again, Brian and I have been so excited to have you on, because you have made a huge impact on both of our lives, and I know the lives of thousands of people that have come through the Triton program. So what do you see in this upcoming year? How does the team look? Talk us through a little bit about the season. And I think there was a change recently to the division that we're in as well.
Yeah, last year we had a great year. We finished 9-2, played in Division I quarterfinals against St. John Bosco. And a lot of those kids are coming back off this year's team. And I think it's important, as I said earlier, with talking to you guys off camera, is that it's important for our players to kind of lay the foundation, but also set the bar for the future. And this upcoming season, we have 7 returners back on defense. We have 6 on offense, some very talented players that have a lot of game experience. We do have, we lost some players, losing Connor Bachhuber to Stanford, losing Ben Baker to Fresno State. Those are guys that play both ways. That's really like losing 4 players.
Sure.
So we do got some spots to fill, but also, when you return 4 linebackers that have plenty of experience from last year, and you have 3 DBs with plenty of experience, for me, since I've been in San Clemente, our defense is our foundation. But I also think offensively, we have some weapons. We can do some great things. And I'm very blessed to have a very talented coaching staff that does a great job with our kids from freshmen all the way up to varsity. And we're excited about this year. As you mentioned, with the new league, the South Coast League is now done with the new rankings that they have new leagues for. It kind of varies from school to school. We're in the Alpha League, and so it's us, Mission Viejo, Edison, and LoSal. We're the top 4 public schools in Orange County, so therefore we're in our league. It's called the Alpha League, and those games are going to be, each one of them is going to be a close game. It's going to be a tough game, and our kids are excited about the opportunity to go and prepare for that.
So how does that work? So it's based off of last year, is who makes up the Alpha League?
Yeah, it's the last 2 years. So
Okay.
it's like the numbers, I think it's like 65, 70% off
Okay.
your last year, and then 30% off the year before.
And CIF runs all that?
And CIF runs that, yeah. So there's a ranking that comes out, and once they establish the rankings from 1 all the way down to 135, and then that's when they start cutting up the leagues.
So in the old South Coast League that we used to play in, does the Dana Hills, Capo Valley, those games not happen anymore?
They don't, unless it's a non-season, a preseason game,
Really?
a non-league game.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's kind of the old school part of me is like, when you play Mission, you want to play them in basketball, you want to play them in baseball, you want to play them in wrestling.
Right.
And having that, Dana Hills and Capo, the local schools. But now with this new, division format, we are blessed to be in the top league, but also it's going to kind of vary. And they're doing it with other sports as well. Football was the kind of test tube, started early on with that, and now they're starting to expand to other sports as well.
So the South Coast League still exists for basketball or volleyball?
At certain sports, yes. Yeah, I can't remember I think it's baseball, and I think like water polo, basketball, they're now
Gotcha.
going to this format. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's a little bit different.
Is it to get the more competitive schools playing each other more often?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like you said, my old school brain, like, well, shoot, I like the Capo game or whatever. Those kind of rivalries that develop with kids you grew up playing in other sports. But you're also getting competitive games.
Yeah. Who was it? Wasn't one of the teams, wouldn't they come in and try to spray paint the SC that we have on the hill? Did that happen when we were growing up? Or I feel like there was some rivalry. Maybe it was.
Thing.
Yeah, maybe it was. I feel like maybe it was Capo, but in any case.
Yeah, and it varies. Like Capo. Capo and San Clemente back in the late 80s, early 90s was a big rivalry. Us in Mission, we're battling for the league title every single year, so that it is. And it kind of varies. Back in the early mid-2000s, it was Tesoro. It was Dana at one point. It kind of ebb and flow depending on how the programs, compete. And the one thing that I think, I'm proud about is when I got to San Clemente in 2000, we were competing in the top of Division II. So it was us and Chino and Hart and, Canyon High School, Mission also at that time. And then, later on in the mid-2000s, we're playing La Habra. We're playing some tough teams there, Tribuco Hills. And then now, with St. John Bosco in the Division I and competing, in Division II, we won the CIF title. It's like one thing that's consistent with San Clemente is we've kind of stayed at the top of that mountain. Hasn't always reached the peak at times, but I think it's important for our kids to understand that there's, like you said, there's a foundation laid, and in each year we've been very competitive, and we haven't had those down years, and it's been 1 or 2 mid years, for us. But other programs we competed against are now Division VI, Division VII, and we've done a good job staying at that Division I, Division II level with the athletes and the parent support that we have at the high school.
That's amazing. No, people need to realize, again, what a great job you, and I know you'll attribute a lot of it to the support staff around you, but the program you've built over the last, 20 years, and then, again, being the head coach for the last, 10 years, or has it been 12 years?
12 years.
12 years as the head coach. That's a lot of responsibility put on your shoulders, right? I mean, you've got to navigate very, tricky waters. You've got a team. I can't imagine how hard that job is, but you love it, right? Like, it's much bigger than a job for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think, for me, it's giving the players a better experience than I had. I had a great time in high school playing with some really good friends, and to this day, we're still tight. It's about giving them an experience where they understand the expectations of leading our school and our community. But more importantly, also for them, is building that bond together, that brotherhood. I have had numerous players that I've coached that went on to the NFL and played in college and so forth, but I think their ability to come together as a high school and be a high school teammate. I tell the players that you'll be at your, high school buddy, you'll be at his wedding, you might be at his funeral, his, first baby being born. All those things, in my opinion, come hand in hand of being part of that team atmosphere, and that's the culture we kind of created within the program. And wins and losses come and go, but I think the leadership and the determination, the discipline they learn is something that will serve them for life.
That's amazing. What's the perception of San Clemente High School amongst like the other teams and the other leagues? Are we known as a football school, as a program, or is that?
Yeah, I think our school in general,
Yeah.
as we were talking earlier, in the mid '80s, it was a surf town.
Yeah.
And if the waves were good, the players wouldn't go to practice.
Yeah.
And I take on that connotation. We are a surf town. We can work out at the beach, and for our kids, they understand the expectations that in Southern California, people know San Clemente football. We've been blessed to have players like Brian go on and play in the NFL with Sam and Cole Fotheringham, and it's something that is something special here within our community. But I think if you go anywhere in Southern California, people know about San Clemente football. But also, we have some pretty good sports, on campus as well with our soccer programs and basketball and baseball. There's a lot of unique things at San Clemente High School to make it special. And I think the ability for the entire town to come around and support these kids, and not just on the football field, but also on the baseball field and on our gym. Those are things that kind of go hand in hand.
That's amazing. Yeah, for those of you that do not know, Brian had a very successful football career. Went on and played for the New Orleans Saints among a couple other teams. Yep. But how much, what would you talk on looking back on your high school, your high school experience as a football player? What were the best days? What were the most positive experiences? Looking back on your career?
I really think it. The off season, the building of the program. One of my most vivid football memories, my football memory cup is pretty full. But I can remember losing to Hart and being emotional after that game. Whereas college and professional, when you lose, there wasn't as much substance or emotion because you didn't grow up with this team or whatever. I knew that this was the last time I was going to be able to play with this group. And that really speaks a lot to the coaching staff creating that environment. But I think that emotional attachment to the foundational too, it was the beginning of my football career. The first time I put on pads was my freshman year of high school. I can remember we were talking about Brian Fort and Jock Zoller. I can remember having to go hit those guys for the first time, and you're like, holy crap, these guys know how to play football. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But it created that environment of competition, buy-in, and I think that really starts in the off season, starts in training camp, and then it's built over the course of your high school career. So I attribute a lot of my success to those early years, having great coaches and being able to build that foundation. That's what that emotional connection to football was that.
Yeah. That's
homecoming. Yeah. Just what you've done is really captured with social media, and I think your style of the one town, one team, and really emphasizing the community aspect of it because it's important and it's unique in California.
Yeah. And I think that, the one thing, the one town, one team, for me, it's important because the players know, what they represent, who they represent, right. and that. But also for me, it's not necessarily just about football. For me, when we won the state championship 2016, right, we pull into the parking lot and there's 3,000 people at the high school. We have the homecoming parade, the championship parade right down here on Del Mar, and they have a presentation. And to me, that's the highs, and you'd be able to go and experience a homecoming game. There's 8,000 people there. Right. I think that's the highs of one town, one team. But on the flip side, when Nick Pasquale passed away, right. and the way that the community surrounded that family, say Lavorce, and we've had some players go through some personal tragedies within their life, and the way the community continues to support those players and support students on our campus. To me, that's important. That the wins and the championships are great, and people see that. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes where a lot of people support our program, support our players, especially when they're going through personal tragedy, and see them wrap their arms around them the same way they do when you win a state championship or a league championship. To me, that's what makes San Clemente so special.
Yeah, it's unique. I had fortunate to play in lots of different parts of the country, and San Clemente is very much a community first spot, which is unique in California. There's so much to do in California. You could be surfing, you could be snowboarding, you could be a Lakers fan, a Clippers fan, a Dodger fan. There's so much stuff going on that when you get into a New Orleans or parts of the Midwest, LSU and Saints football its time stopped, and it was that community supported 100%. And I feel like San Clemente does a good job of doing that, supporting each other, caring about what's going on. Good or bad, people care about what's going on, what you're into, how you're doing, how's your family, how's your parents, how's your sister. And I think that's special in this fast-paced, busy life that we all lead. So kudos to capturing that and keeping that going. I think it's special. I'm excited for my boys to come up through the program and be part of it. And I know they are too, going to the games, having open arms, getting to go into the high school football camps, getting to meet all the players. I can remember going and being like, oh, there's Trevor Inslee and Jake Jerome. And then you get to see him play on Friday night.
Right.
And it's like these little celebrities. And then you see him at T Street boogie boarding, and you're like, it's just full circle. So I think it's important, and I'm seeing it from a different perspective now, having kids, which makes me even more excited for them to get pushed into those programs. So it's cool.
You see a lot of kids like through Pop Warner, right, that talk about, and I'd be curious too, just to get your feedback on the amount of kids we have in Pop Warner. Are they all going to San Clemente High School, or are they filtered out throughout San Juan, Santa Margarita, other schools? Because I can't imagine playing anywhere else.
Right.
Where else would you want to play football besides a town that backs you, supports you? You know, it truly is that one town, one team. Yeah. There's nothing more exciting than going to a football game on a Friday night. It's the best thing ever. How exciting is it walking out of the locker? Two things. I want to go back to Pop Warner here, but I'm getting fired up. I want to walk out of that locker again on Friday night. It's the best feeling ever.
You got the walk from the locker room to the field.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best, right? So how do we keep the Pop Warner kids? How do we keep them in the San Clemente program? How do we keep them going from Pop Warner to San Clemente High School?
You know, I think the big thing is giving them a great experience, and that doesn't necessarily mean wins and losses or going to Orange Bowl or going to Florida. I think, you know, I myself am coaching Pop Warner with my son Colton. He's playing at 11U, and in the past I've coached my other son as well. And one thing I've kind of realized is, number one, from a head coaching standpoint, coaching education, having clinics for these coaches, giving them drills, giving them scheme. But more importantly, I think for especially the Pop Warner level, is teaching them the fundamentals and teaching them how to do things safely, how to do things correctly. You know, there's a big emphasis over the last 15 years or so about tackling and the drills that you do to do tackling. I think for me, it's important for those kids to understand, once they understand the fundamentals, they understand the technique, they understand their assignment, then the scheme comes into play. But, you know, there are programs out there where I think that with all due respect, the coaches live through their kids, and they think it's the old 1940s, and we're going to do up downs to the cows come home, and we're going to punish these kids, and we're going to build men. I think there's that fine line where you want to have the kids understand that discipline, that work ethic that comes with it, but also you want them to have fun. Because I think that foundation that you lay as a 4th and 5th and 6th grader will pay dividends when they're in 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. You know, I think that's important. But at the end of the day, for me, it's providing a product where kids want to be part of, and hopefully success comes with that, but it's not guaranteed. And I think laying the foundation with fundamentals, technique, that will serve long purpose versus the immediate gains of we're going to win this game. I think that comes with everything that you build in.
Absolutely. I've got 2 kids in the Pop Warner program, and I coach both of them, 12 years old and 9 years old, and they love it. It really is. And again, I love it. I love being a part of it. I love watching the way it shapes their lives, because it isn't just football, right? You're teaching them so many skill sets that are going to help them for the rest of their life. Discipline, organization, hard work. There's so many great qualities that you teach these young kids. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we do is, like, on Saturdays we have our post-game lift, and we'll watch film. And sometimes we'll go out to the stadium and watch the Pop Warner game for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Because I want, just like, you know, Brian was saying earlier, I want our players to go back to when you were at that age and the impact you can have, and kind of reminisce what it was used to be. And I agree with you. You know, my oldest son, when he was playing Pop Warner, is probably one of the hardest things he's ever done. But he learned work ethic. He learned discipline. He learned to be on time. Yep. You know, you can't be great if you're going to be late.
Exactly.
You know, things like that. And I think that will serve them, whether it's in football, maybe it's in basketball, maybe it's in baseball later on. That's something that doesn't go away.
It's so rad to see these kids absolutely go to war on the football field, and then after go just become like their best buddies,
Yeah.
right? It's just so rad to see how hard they work and they kick each other's butts. But then as soon as they have a break, right, they're back to being buddies. It's awesome. The camaraderie it builds. And I know we got to work on De La Puente, right? We got to get him back in the system. We got to get him coaching and his boys playing football because it really is the best. But I know with you it's tricky, right? Because you had it as a job and as a career.
The thing I struggle with from the coaching side is the guy. Right now, my boys are 8 and 10, and I am genuinely enjoying coaching them. I get competitive. I have to remind myself that, like Coach, you just said, like, we're building a foundation, right? So if you can teach them a stance or a snap count, hey, it's important to all come off the ball together, not get penalties, just some little things, and then keep it fun. I think there will be a time where my personality tends to lean towards a little bit more serious. I'm excited for those years, but right now it's just about kind of building that foundation and keeping it fun. It's an introduction to football. It's a lot of these kids' first time playing or whatever it is, and I want it to be fun because that's what sports are, fun. And they teach so much more than just the actual sport. It's about accountability, relying on each other, being on time, discipline. Those things are important and they translate in life.
And again, wins or losses. Sometimes you learn more from a loss than you are going to, from a win. There's just so much to learn. What is your coaching tactics in order to get like the most out of a player? It's got to be hard, right? Because these kids are 16, 17, 18 years old. They've got a lot of things going on. How do you approach these boys and young men?
I think that one of the biggest things is first establishing a culture, for our kids, and it starts as incoming freshmen. These are the expectations of the program. This is how we're going to do things. And I think for those players that have some self-accountability within that, understanding that the workouts, the off-season program, the 7-on-7, the early morning practices when you got to be there at 6:15, that all kind of comes with the territory. And I think one thing that I've discussed in the past is that there's up on in our weight room, there's a bunch of former players, alumni that gone on and played in college and so forth. And our players have to understand that it's bigger than them, and I think once we can establish that, they understand that, it's we, not me, that goes a long way. And then we can start talking about X's and O's, the film work, the scheme. One thing, from a lot of coaches that I've had the opportunity to coach against, one compliment we get is our kids play hard. And I think one of the reasons why they do that is they play together. They're playing for each other. And I think they understand that there's a brotherhood there that, Brandon alluded to earlier. There are some schools out there where these kids are put together. Sure. They come from a bunch of different areas, and they're worrying about their scholarship, worrying about their stats, and our kids worry about playing together as a team. And up on that scoreboard, it doesn't say one player's last name when, it says Tritons. And I think for us, like you said, laying that foundation earlier on, from freshman on, that's probably one of the biggest things when I took over the program, was making sure our culture and the expectations were the same to freshmen as at the varsity. Now, there's definitely a lot more expectations and stuff we do at the varsity level, but I want every player in our program, and our varsity coaches are involved with our 8th graders, incoming freshmen, and establishing that. On our freshman staff does a great job reinstilling it with them and reminding them of what it is. But I think if you can do that and you have a good scheme on both sides of the ball and the kids play hard, you could be a very successful high school football team.
Talk about the process. So, like, I think a lot of people might think that football season starts week 1, September, whatever. Mm-hmm. It starts spring. Talk about your spring program, your off-season program, what the kids do, what the kind of work they're putting in, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Back in the day, it used to be, hey, everybody shows up August 1st and we start camp. There was no summer camp. There wasn't 7-on-7 back in the old days. But for me, especially after the season, hopefully we go as long as we can to November and hopefully December. But I think it's important for our kids to have a little break, have a little time away from football. Finish up the school year well in December, make sure in the classroom they're preparing for finals and spending some family time. I think that you need that break in football. Yeah. There's a lot of programs that are year round, and I don't know if it serves the right purpose. If they're a two-sport athlete, go on to your winter sport, and we'll come support you in basketball, wrestling, whatever it may be. And then we start up really in January. When we get back in the new year, the way the semesters are now split up with school ending in December, and we start second semester in January, we're in the weight room 3 days a week. Then gradually as we get to February, we go 4 days a week. We don't touch a football in January and February. It's really just focusing on laying the foundation in the weight room, building that culture of like wins and losses matter here.
Right.
This is what separates from other teams is we're going to be the bigger, faster, stronger team. As we get to late February, we might go out and throw the football a little bit. The last couple of years, we've done this league called Fervor. It's a high school passing league thing that we do. And for our kids, it's very informal. We practice 1 day a week for an hour, and we go out and play on Saturdays. Cool. And it's an opportunity for them to compete, have a little fun with it, but it's also not the stress of what we do in the summer and in the fall. And we progress up into spring ball, and for our coaches, spring ball is kind of where we lay the foundation for scheme-wise for the upcoming season. Guys are battling for positions right there and then, and that's where we kind of get into it. Then we have a break. Same thing, coaches need a break, players need a break, school's done. Enjoy that family time, go on trips, do what you got to do, and then we start. We have this past year we had a 5-week summer camp program. We go 4 days a week with some lineman competition, 7-on-7. It's a lot more to do than we've probably done in years past. But for me, it's trying to find that fine line, where we want to do activity, but I don't want to burn the kids out. I want them to come back on July 31st and like, oh man, we're back in football. I want them to be fresh. I want them to be excited. In 2016, we won the state championship. We had 136 days of activities, including Sundays and the weekends. Right. And so that was a long season. Yeah. And I think the important thing is as you get through the end of the season and you begin the playoff run, hopefully you win a league championship and set the foundation for that. But you want the kids to enjoy being there. You want to enjoy being at practice. We're talking about the old days of having a 4-hour practice and a 1-minute water break, and we're going to grind you in the ground. That's kind of along the wayside. I think it's more about the preparation that you put in spring and you prepare for summer. That's when it gets you ready come August.
Gotcha. How much film study goes into it? Do you guys have access to all the technologies and stuff? I mean, when we had, not to date ourselves, but we had tapes that someone filmed and we came in on Saturdays, and that was the only film study we did.
Saturday morning. Yep.
We watched the game, we put it to bed.
Yep.
On to the next week. And it was basically some scheme. And first time you saw the guy was on Friday night. Whereas college professional, there's so much film work that goes into it. Has the high school can you get kids on iPads and get them some cut-ups and how does that work?
Like live time too?
Yeah, when I first got to San Clemente High School, it was all VHS.
Yeah, right? I couldn't even remember what that word was.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
We called them tapes.
Yes, it wasn't an 8-track, but VHS. And I remember, we'd make, I thought I was at the front of everything. I'd get 8 VCRs, and we would record. Scott would cut up film. Yeah. And then we'd give it out to our defensive players, and they had to go home and watch the VHS tapes. And then about 2006, 2007, DVDs, started coming out, and we started making DVD copies. But from a coaching standpoint, nothing was on the internet. There was no technology. Right. It was basically coaches fighting over myself and Coach Brown fighting over the Chino game because there was only one VHS copy of it until we made another copy. Yeah. And so coaches were at the office. You'd be there for 4 or 5 hours because that's the only place you could watch film. Right. With the invention of Huddle, Huddle is a software where it allows us to upload our game film, our practice film, our opponent's film. Back in the day, in the early 2000s, when we'd play, we'd play Hart High School, we'd have to meet halfway and do VHS film exchanges, kind of like a drug deal. Sure. At a gas station, and you'd switch films, and you take that film home. Right. Now it's click of a mouse, and you can send film anywhere you want.
Cool. And do the athletes have access to Huddle? Right.
Yeah. Every athlete in our program has access to Huddle. And the big thing for us, even during practice, during practice, we have 2 drones.
One's filming the defense, that's amazing.
One's filming the offense. And
so you're not even going up in the boom lift or whatever?
No more lift. And there's the old days of, camcorders.
You forget about drones. That's amazing.
Yeah, we started using drones. It's funny. We had a spring practice, and Oregon, who's always known as like the innovator of everything, their coach is watching our drone go up. He's like, is that for practice? We're like, yeah. And that was 9 years ago. Yeah. And so today we had practice this morning. Kids can, it's uploaded by the time they get home.
Wow.
And they can watch it, and we can tag. And honestly, from a coaching standpoint, you can tag the plays, you can sort it. And so definitely, like, watching film is no longer
Streamlined.
Yeah, it's very streamlined for our players and our coaches. As coaches, you can go home. We on a Saturday went to be there till 4:00, fighting over the Chino or the Hart game.
Right.
You can say, hey, go home. Let's watch these games. Let's break it down. Come back. We'll meet tomorrow. Even with post-COVID, sometimes as a coaching staff, we'll meet on Zoom.
Sure.
Instead of everybody coming down to the high school, if I know it's going to be a short meeting, we'll meet on Zoom, have that meeting, and go. And
It's
during
more efficient.
during the COVID era, we had team meetings, via Zoom and things like that.
Technology is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It really is. That's unbelievable.
That's cool. I mean, I can only imagine how much more prepared you'd feel going into it. Like, oh, okay, I know this guy. These are his 3 pass rush moves. And
Yep. What does a typical week during the season look like for you? Like, walk us through a Monday to Sunday or Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. Monday, we're in the weight room. Then we have a lunch meeting with the kids, and we kind of go over players of the week. We try and put it to bed that Monday from the previous week. We go over our goals. We have goals, offense, defense, special teams wise. Did we meet our goals? What did we achieve? Things like that. And then we kind of put that game to bed. And then we start focusing on our coming opponent. As we said earlier, we have film. We have scouting reports for the kids. We have breakdowns, blitzes, run tendencies, pass tendencies. What we can expect coverage-wise with the individual kids, what they do well, and what you can expect. And then also we add what we're going to do. We add some new fronts, maybe some new blitzes, maybe some new offensive plays as well. And then we usually practice on Monday nights for our kids. We practice on Monday nights. Tuesdays, we go in afternoon practice, ranges usually about 2 hours, the way our practice works. And on Wednesdays, a weight room day, we always got to be in the weight room. I think there's some programs out there where they lift in the off season. Then come season time, they stop. Our kids understand the weight room is very important. It's not a part-time thing. It's an all-time thing. And so we'll be in the weight room on Mondays and Wednesdays with the kids. Thursdays, more of a fine-tuning, special teams, walkthrough day, getting the body right. I know they always do a senior dinner on Thursday nights. Seniors look forward to that. And then Friday we play. We have our game on Friday night. And then on Saturday, we tell the true Saturday where the kids come in. We'll have a flush workout. Kids will go to score and get their body right, and then we'll meet with the kids, watch our game from Friday night, and then as coaches we start preparing for the next week. For me, I kind of have double duty, because I'll be there in the morning. Then I may have to run to Santa Ana for a Pop Warner game. But like I said earlier, I'm pretty blessed with a lot of qualified coaches that are really in tune of what we are doing. They meet with the kids, and we don't watch film as a big group. We split up into small groups. So linebackers be one room, defensive line in another. That allows more contact with those players. And again, with the technology, we can have as long as we have a computer, we can have a projector, we can watch film. And so we're able to split it up amongst those coaches and really get ready for our upcoming opponent. The big thing for me is, like you said, a loss. To us, a loss is a lesson. It's easy to win and just beat someone up and go through that game, but what do we learn from it? And I think you have to take in that winning what we fix, what we got to do, and also in the losses, you got to make sure you take those learning lessons and you fix what you need to fix and move on and get ready for the next opponent.
That's amazing. That fires me up. I want to go back to high school football. It really is. That's awesome. What's some advice you have for these for the incoming kids if they're fighting for a position and they're battling and going to work? What's some advice or what's something as a coach that you look for in a kid that can help them stick out?
Yeah, I think Kyle Whittingham, head coach at Utah, one of his big quotes is, "Don't count the reps, make the reps count." And I think it's important for our players to understand that when you come to San Clemente, we're highly competitive. We're, like I said, one of the top teams in the county. We're defending league champs. We're Division I last year, and our kids know you're going to have to come compete. It's something that I took from Pete Carroll. I had quite a few players that played at USC back when he was there, and competition makes everybody better. Offense versus defense, player versus player. I think that's something that players have to understand. And I think when they make the transition from Pop Warner to high school, well, I always get my 12 plays. Well, it doesn't work like that anymore. And so I think sometimes players have to understand that it is, as a head coach, it's important for me that I want to put our best players on the field with an opportunity to play. Can coaches make mistakes at times? Can they have to reevaluate, how they judge? Totally, 100%. But our goal is on a Friday night that we want to put our best players in a position to be successful. And it's up to those players. They also have to meet the demands of what we want to have done. doing the film work, making sure, you're in shape, making sure you're working, in the weight room. All those things kind of go hand in hand, knowing your opponent, knowing what the scheme is, knowing what the checks are. One of the things I told our players recently is it was, you watch the player in front of you, you're getting your mental reps. You may not be the guy that's in that play right now, but you want to see what he's doing. And if he gets yelled at, you probably don't want to do what he's doing,
Yeah.
And to me, I joke around if you have a brother or sister, you've seen them get in trouble, I'm not going to repeat that, And so, but at the end of the day, your initial question was, to me, it's about competition and making sure that those kids understand that you're going to compete. And it's very competitive at our school, and players know that, and that's why they want to go there.
That's amazing. There was a kid last year on the team that was so exciting to watch. I think he was maybe a Samoan Hawaiian kid that came. What was his name? Do you remember?
There's there's two. There's Puka Fuamoano and then Matai Tongawai.
Okay.
Yeah, probably Matai, but Matai was new.
Okay, yeah, and it was just so exciting. You could just tell that kid's different, right? The way he operated on the field was awesome.
Is he committed to SC?
He's committed to SC, yeah.
And then the linebacker,
he's committed to ASU.
That's huge. Think about
big
that.
Programs, yeah.
Huge programs coming out of little San Clemente High School, right?
Yeah.
Not so little anymore.
Yeah.
A dominant program.
Any other players to watch?
We have a couple kids, off last year's team returners. Talk about Matai, he's going to USC. He had offers from Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, you name it.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Puka is committed to ASU, which is a good fit for him. He's going to play running back and linebacker for us. Matai will play some wide receiver. There's kids like Max Codoranta. Max has offers from Drake, a couple other schools. He's a guy that's going to play both ways for us. He'll play receiver and play defensive back. He's a 3-year varsity guy. Max Ballard, another 3-year varsity guy. So there's some kids with some playing experience off last year's team, and then there's a kid like Zeke Rubenstein. He probably doesn't get the attention that Matai and Puka get, but he's also a 3-year starter at the outside backer spot. And so there's definitely some kids coming back that replacing Aiden Rubin, the running back.
He was a stud, huh?
He had a phenomenal year last year, and unfortunately, recruiting-wise, it didn't pan out for him. He's going to be serving his church, going on a mission for the next 2 years. He was a big part of our program and the reason why we were very successful last year. We run the football. Our O-line coach, Coach Actus, does a great job of the O-linemen, and they bought into it and had a great year with that. So you got to replace some good seniors off last year's team, but that's the process. You got to trust the process and go through that. And then this year, we have, like I said, 3 secondary players back and 4 linebackers. We have one D line with playing experience, and on the O-line, our leading receiver, Cole Hurling. He's coming back at the receiver spot. He has an offer from Air Force.
Cool.
And then Xander Rex, the Rex's name is very well known in San Clemente.
Sure.
He's going to be a senior tight end and defensive end / outside linebacker for us. So there's definitely some playing experience with those players coming back, and they're excited for the opportunity to compete this year.
That's awesome. Talk about, I know you do a great job of promoting your players. How much of your time is dedicated towards the recruiting side of things? What is the recruiting landscape? I know that when I was playing, coaches were on the road. Are they on the road as much anymore? How does all that kind of fit into your program?
Yeah, I think, one thing that, when I took over the program was I want to be successful at the high school level, but I also want to promise our players I'm going to do my best to give them an opportunity to play at the next level. But it's important they understand it starts with San Clemente High School. And with the internet now and technology and Instagram and Twitter, players have a lot more access to college coaches, where probably back when you guys played that, there was no cell phones, at that point in time. And the only time you saw a coach is when he came on campus, or you could email. I remember when Josh Farrell was a running back for us, and I put his highlights on YouTube, and I sent his YouTube link out, and I thought that was the greatest thing ever. Back then, because back in the day, you would get a blank VHS tape.
Yep.
You would copy your last game, and you send it out via UPS back to the college. And now with Huddle, every college coach has access to your practice film. They have access to your game film.
Wow.
And we're the small fish. These programs pay $35,000, $40,000 to have access to Huddle, and we provide the product for them.
Wow.
And so that's something that's different than probably back in the day. And they still come out in January. They can visit basically from January to mid-February. And then they come back out during spring football. Cool. And that's where it is. And then, there's a lot of camps out there. I will say with the whole, transfer portal, it's made high school recruiting a little bit tougher.
Sure.
Their first, a lot of programs, there's pressure to win now. And so they'll go on the transfer portal and try and pick up a linebacker from another school and bring them in. There are some programs that are so dedicated to recruiting high school kids, but that landscape's kind of changed. I think with the name, image, likeness, that's changed the game a little bit.
I was going to ask you about the NIL. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Is that affecting high school too?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, big time.
So the high school kids can be making money.
They will once they sign.
Once they commit to a college.
Correct. Yeah. Once they sign, or they could get a sponsorship by such and such. And the big thing is they can't be in an ad or a commercial wearing a San Clemente High School jersey. They can wear a generic Nike jersey. But there's, I'll give you one and leave names out of it. But there was a recruit that's been recruited by then a Pac-12 school, and he decided to go to another school. And that head coach left. The kid committed to another school. He committed, early enrolled, was on campus. That head coach left. So that kid had an opportunity to transfer out and to get a free opportunity, free swing to go somewhere else. Well, when he went back to that Pac-12 school, they said, hey, well, once you committed to XYZ, we gave that money to another player. And we're talking $800 million.
Jeez,
wow.
Yeah, and that player, they said, you come in and you beat him out next year, we'll give it to you. But right now, that's kind of where it sits. And so, I kind of, Nick Saban recently, retired from football, and again, this is my 31st year. I'm a little old school. That in the past, it's laying the foundation with your winning, your culture, your facilities were a big part of it.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit more, like Washington. They were in the national championship game, and before you know it, the staff's gone, the players are gone, and I just think it's a little bit harder to be a college coach than it was years ago, because you got to recruit your own players to keep them on campus, and you got to recruit other people's players, and you got to recruit high school kids. And so for me,
that sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it's a full-time job, and I've had coaches be in our campus, and I got to fly out all of a sudden this afternoon because we're bringing in a linebacker that maybe wants to come here, and so it's always never stops with college recruiting. At the high school level, I take great pride in getting our kids out. I want our kids to have the best opportunities, whether it's Stanford, whether it's Fordham, whether it's Drake University, whether it's Columbia. I want to give our kids the opportunity of exposure. Are we 100%? No. Recruiting, there's not a direct science to it. It varies from program to program what they're looking for and what their needs are. But I want to make sure that we give our kids the best opportunity to play, and hopefully it works out for them.
How important is social media and the platform that these kids have? Has that changed the landscape a lot too? Yeah.
I think their ability to market themselves, for coaches to market kids, but also on the flip side, it's going to work against you.
Sure.
If you're a kid that's posting stuff that you shouldn't be posting and saying things you shouldn't be saying. I know, like when Oregon recruited Sam, they wanted his Facebook account. And I go, well, Sam's not on Facebook. Sam's not even on Twitter. And so they go back and they do their research. Going back to middle school, they want to make sure they cross their T's and dot their I's, and so it can work for you. But also, I caution our kids, what you post and what you say can go a long way. And so it definitely gives you an opportunity to get an inside look at our program. With our Instagram and our Twitter. I run it. I'm a social media coordinator.
Yeah.
It's my cell phone. But and for me, I want to keep it about our kids and our program. It's not about me. It's not about our coaches. It's about our kids, and it allows people to get an inside look at what we're about, and it's very organic. There are programs out there where parents run it or Bruce Club president runs it, and for me, I want our players to see their current players running 110s. I want a former player like, I remember doing that.
Yeah.
I remember the weight workout. Yes, they still keep in that tradition, and to me, it's important to kind of embrace that.
The up down day.
Yes. Yeah, that was today. Yeah, that was today.
I remember those damn up down. Like we had to do them. Yeah. God, those suck.
Yeah.
It's a long way down, and there's a lot of body to get back up.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not a lineman's favorite.
No, exactly. You get the track and field kids that tend to, get down and up a little faster.
Yeah. That wasn't even that hard. Oh,
exactly.
You,
yeah. No, I want to go back a little bit to culture, and I know we touched on it, but share your story, Brian, with what Sean Payton had done on the Saints after a big win when you guys were flying around in the air, and he had a little present for you guys. And I'm curious if you've got any of these little tricks up your sleeve.
So Coach Payton had such a good pulse on the team. He really thought a lot about the team chemistry, the environment he was creating, having, those quote unquote cancers on the team. He kept the nucleus. It was the most like a college team that I had ever been a part of, that I felt like I love that guy. I love that guy. And it was because of these little things that Coach Payton would do. One of the ones that stand out in my mind is we beat Dallas on Thanksgiving, and we were flying home, and he got on the speaker, said, "Hey guys, I told the pilot to take the long way home," and I don't even know where we were. From Dallas to New Orleans was 40-minute flight. We were up in the air for probably 4 hours. Camaraderie, right?
Right.
Capturing that energy of that win, knowing we had a couple days off after Thanksgiving, and keeping the group together with no distractions. There was no wives around, no kids. It was just the team. And he knew that. And like in the moment, you're like, hell yeah, this is fun. Like we get to hang out, and we're, flying around wherever, over at Arkansas or something. But what he was doing was he was capturing that energy. And it was so valuable because that team, I think that was the 11 team. That's when Drew broke all those records, and Sproles broke the records, and our offense was one of the best offenses of all time. He just captured that energy, and he did it all the time. And it was, just that consistent ability to have a pulse on the team while running the ship was, I think, what a lot of, and being an offensive, genius, and getting to work with Drew Brees and all those things, right? The perfect storm. But that's where the success came, is he gave credit to that chemistry and keeping those players in place that were integral parts of that chemistry.
Yep. What's wild though, at the time, you guys didn't know it, right? You're just
you're just in the moment. I mean, he did that stuff all the time. I remember when we played the first road playoff game, and there's so many of these stories. In Philadelphia, the Saints as an organization have never won a road playoff game. Night before, he was talking about the Philadelphia fans being crazy, and they're going to be throwing snowballs and beer cans. And you know what? Screw these guys. I'm going to put bullseyes on the side of our buses so they have somewhere to aim. And that everybody in the room's like, oh, hell yeah, like, let's go. It's a night game the next day. We wake up and have meetings, and kind of, 3-4 o'clock, we get down to the buses, and there's 5 buses with 15 by 15 foot bullseyes on both sides of it. And we're like, oh shit, this guy, we better go back him up, because he's ready. And we won, I think, on a game-winning field goal, and we did laps around that stadium.
Oh my God.
With bullseyes on the side of our buses. And it was just that energy, that momentum, and he captured it, and he had that swagger, and you're just like, I'll freaking do anything for this guy. And I'm lucky and thankful to have gotten to play for him, and kind of give me my opportunity and my shot to compete at that level. But man, in hindsight, like looking back on it all, and the thought and the planning and all the stuff that went into that. I mean, he had you can't just print out,
you're right,
15-foot bullseye. He knew that was happening.
Right.
And the forward thinking, and it was bitching. So, I mean, do you take into that account, like, who's like the chemistry of the team?
Yeah, I think, for me, especially at the high school level, I think for our kids, like I said, wins and losses, you kind of remember certain glimmers of that.
Sure.
But like being in the weight room together before the game, or being in the team room, or having a senior, barbecue or something like that, or a meal.
Right.
Instead of, conditioning, we go to the pool,
Right.
and we just have a pool day. I think those things, players don't forget those things.
Right.
They might forget touchdowns. They might forget plays, final scores. I'm not a Troy Copper offense coordinator. He remembers every play, every score. I mean, that's just what he does. For me, it's about those unique experiences that maybe don't relate to football,
Right.
but the ability to come together.
Yeah.
Those things happen. That, you might have been through this, but like there's times where we played really, really bad on defense. And what I'll do is I'll get a shovel. We'll go out behind the scoreboard. We'll take a VHS. Now, kids don't know what that is, but this represents our game. Yeah. In the past, have been our game film, and we're going to bury it. You know, like and there's little things like that kind of go hand in hand. I think for me, it's building that culture with those kids that I'll do anything for my fellow brothers. And I think as a coaching staff, you know, there's an old saying that players don't care how much you know, so they know how much you care.
Right.
You know, I think it's well known. I'm strict. I'm a very disciplinarian guy. But the players know there's a reason why we do what we do.
Right.
And also they're going to get that love and they're going to get that attention as well. But there's also the expectations that we have as one of the top programs. That's what we're going to do. And so it's you're not a coach where you're going to browbeat kids and get on them, unless you can also provide that love and making sure they understand why you're doing what you do and why they need to do what they need to do. I think it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it's important. It's that culture. And that when you get close with those kids, like with Coach Butler, you have that relationship, that foundation from years of being there at 6:15. You know, you're not out there. It's not just your strength coach out there. You're out there running it. No coach cares about me. You can have that, hey, dude, this is not what we're doing. You can have that hard conversation. We need you to step up, whatever it is. If you have that relationship, you can do it. And that comes with time. That comes with of days and hours and sweat and respect and consistency and accountability and discipline and all those things to have those conversations. And it takes a lot of time and effort. And if it's important, it's important. And that's how you build a program, you know, going on 15 years like of success, state championships, league championships, QBU. I mean, how many quarterbacks have gone Division I that you've coached? You got Travis.
Yeah, we got Travis.
Sam. Jack.
Cole Burquest.
Cole. I saw Cole the other night.
Yeah, Mike Cook went to Harvard.
There's 5 D1 right there, quarterbacks. That's amazing. More?
Yeah, there's more. Nick Billups is at UCLA. You know, we have the past Dylan Mills is at Villanova. Brendan Costello went to Oklahoma State. Yeah, we've been pretty lucky to have some great guys.
That's awesome.
And I think one thing that Brian, you know, I sometimes I get these parents. I go, you know, thank you for building, you know, my son into a man. And I think it's important for parents. It's, you know, we're along for the ride. We help in the journey, but it starts at home. You know, and there's times where some players don't have that, and we got to invest more time with that. But I think it's important for you know, as coaches, I think sometimes, well, I'm going to do this. Well, it starts at home, and we try and reinforce that foundation. We might alter some things. Parents may not want to be at school at 6:15, dropping off their kid, and so I give them, you know, credit for being part of that process. But I think it starts at home, and we as coaches help reinforce. You know, I tell our parents that are meeting every year, it takes a village. You know, in order for us to be successful, parents are a big part of our fundraising experience. They're getting the players there early, picking up after school, making sure they're feeding them. All that kind of goes hand in hand. And if we can do those things, then as coaches, we can just, you know, coach the game and help build young men. But I think the foundation starts at home. And as we all know, there's some players out there that they need football more than football needs them. And we identify those players early on, and we do the best we can to help them. But also at times they got to help themselves.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. What advice do you have for some of these younger Pop Warner coaches, or just coaches that are coaching these younger kids? What advice would you have for them?
I think just, you know, enjoy the time because it goes by fast. You know, time's a thief. You know, my son's a sophomore. It wasn't too long ago. I was coaching him in, you know, 12U and 13U football, and it's going to go by fast. And I think sometimes majority of Pop Warner coaches are dads. And I think the big thing is creating that separation, you know, and that's something I learned with my son Jackson is, you know, the car ride home, you know, the days of Martin Vrenovich making Todd run along the side of the car, you know, that's an extreme. And like I said earlier, I think for coaches laying the foundation, there's so much pressure, you know, to win, and there's so much pressure. I think social media, you know, with parents where they want to post their son was on All-Star, their son was, you know, this, was that. And so there's pressure. Kids already have enough pressure as it is. I think just for them, it's really loving up their son and loving up the other kids. I think that's important, and laying that foundation and understanding that, you know, whether we win or lose on Saturday, life's going to be okay. You know, one of the things I tell our players and our parents, and it relates also to Pop Warner, even in high school, just in a pure academic setting, is that we as parents, you know, our job is to prepare kids to climb the mountain. Our job is not to move the mountain for them. And I think it's important that
that's like in life.
Yeah, that's life's going to have its ups and downs. I've been through my ups and downs. You know, that's part of life. You know, won a CIF championship. We've also lost the championship last play a game against La Habra in 2015.
Oh.
And so I've been to the highest mountaintop. I've been at the low. I've experienced it all. And I think it's important that sometimes parents put too much pressure to try and keep kids from losing.
Sure.
It's going to happen. And those kids have to be accountable, right, and understand what they got to do to fix it. There's times where kids have troubles in school. They're going to fail a test. They're not prepared for a quiz. That's part of life. And sometimes, in my opinion, parents sometimes try and make it easier for that kid, and sometimes it's got to be hard. And the important thing is those kids have to learn from that. If there's if the same thing happens over and over again, the same thing, that's definition of
insanity.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Exactly.
Expecting a different result, you're gonna get the same thing. So that's different. But I think it's important for parents as they go through the process. And I think there's a lot more pressure on kids nowadays with social media. And I think sometimes parents posting about their kids all the time, their accolades, there's pressure on those kids. Sure. And I think they already have enough pressure as it is. And they just got to kind of embrace the opportunity and love their kid up and teach them life skills. Jeff Froner is our O-line coach for a lot of years. He's now in Iowa. And, you give them wits and wings. Give them the wits, they got to leave the nest, and they got wings. And I think that's an important way to kind of approach life.
I love it.
That's brilliant. No, you said something that's very powerful, that a lot of these kids, or some of them, need football, right? More than football needs them. And so they may come out to a practice and, that is the best part of their day, right? You don't know what they're experiencing at home. That they could have a hard home life, right? And so I think as coaches, sure, it's so important for us to recognize that and really lean into them. And yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah, I tell our players that it's one of the most consistent things that you're going to have in your high school experience. You can bet when the weight room's open, the coaches are going to be there. When you bet when there's a film session, coach is going to be there. Practice will start at this time, and for some kids, they need that discipline. They need that routine. And it might be the most consistent thing they have in their life at the present time, and I think, the adage I use is players don't ever regret playing football. They regret not playing. And I think if they can kind of just keep that consistency, and as coaches, we're aware of family life in certain situations. It might be your girlfriend, it might be a fellow teammate, it might be a home life. We do our best to try and manage that, work, and whether you're a starter or not, doesn't matter to me. We'll work with all players. The great thing about San Clemente High School when I got there was just realizing that you have such a different vary of culture within the campus.
Sure.
You have families that are military families live on Camp Pendleton. Their dad's, he's out in Afghanistan right now. You have parents that live in $10 million homes, and you have parents where they have 6 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment in the Pier Bowl. And one thing that I really respect about San Clemente High School, and especially our football program, you have so many kids with so many different backgrounds. But they come together for one common goal. And I think that's something that helps them not only at the present time, will help them when they get a job one day and they're working at different people and different backgrounds. That's one thing that, when I talked to Sam when he first got to the Jets, he said the locker room is so different, and it was different at SC, of course, sure, but at the NFL, he's like, the locker room can help you win games, it can help you lose games, and I think that's something that at San Clemente High School, one thing that's really stuck out to me is how we have such a wide range of kids with so many different backgrounds, but yet they come together, they love each other, and they play together.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. If there's a kid out there right now watching that's considering, San Clemente versus another school, what would be your, quick 30-second pitch of why San Clemente High School?
I think, for me, it's an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than you. You're one of the top high schools in Southern California, not just football, but in general. And I think you get an opportunity to be, in an experience where you get to represent your school, represent your community, and play at a high level, regardless of sport. And I think from a football standpoint, we have multiple players in college. We have multiple players in the NFL. Like last couple of years, we've proven that we're a proven winner. You're going to be coached by guys that play at the highest level. Played Super Bowl champs. We have coaches that have played in the NFL, coaches that played in college, and you have a good example of what being a Triton's all about by watching us on a Friday night. You come to a game on Friday night, there's nothing like it, and the city shuts down to support our kids and our community, and that kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
That fires me up. Dude.
No, I mean, we could talk about this stuff all day.
No, it fires me up. Clearly, you're passionate, very passionate about developing kids and helping them out. What drives you? What is it about this sport and what you do that makes you want to continue to do this for the years ahead?
I think for me, it's, going back to when I was in high school, seeing guys like Eric Patton and Joe Wood and seeing the impact they had on me, Jim Berg, Cam Lawyer, guys that coached me in high school, and the opportunity that they had to, work with young men and turn them into men. And I think for me, that kind of goes hand in hand. And I've been doing this 31 years, and I want to win. There's no doubt about it. I want to be league champs. I want to win a state championship. But for me, it goes back to what I said earlier on, giving them a better experience than I had. And I had a great experience coming up through the ranks and so forth. But to be able to make an impression on these young men and help them become better men and hopefully win some football games along the way, that's important to me. I joked around earlier, I'm 49, but I still feel like I'm 25 because I'm around a bunch of young kids. And, and as a coaching staff, we're on Friday nights, we're in the coach's office. Yeah. We got Metallica going, getting ready for the game. And it's the closest we get to playing. Yeah. But I also understand at the end of the day, it's about the kids. That's the most important thing. And there are some programs out there where they focus too much on social media. They focus on other things. And for me, it's about really laying the foundation with the kids and building that culture and giving them a great experience. And hopefully they come back and visit one day. We have a bunch of alumni come back and visit during summer camp and fall camp and see them do great things in life, not just in football. Maybe it's being a father, being a husband, being a businessman, being successful. All those things kind of go hand in hand.
Sure. Absolutely. What's wild on that topic is it can change someone's life. Like, look at Brad Baker, right? The now principal of San Clemente High School. Sure. We had him on our podcast and we asked him, like, how much would you attribute, your football career? Like, how much success did that drive you to where you're at today? He's like, all of it, 100%. The current athletic director.
And Amro and those guys.
Yeah. He's like, the reason I'm at where I am today is because of football. And here he is as the now new principal of San Clemente High School. Yeah. So it's awesome to see where football can take you and what you can accomplish if you put a lot of hard work in.
Yeah. We appreciate you, Coach.
I had one more question.
Oh, we're at time, Jeff. That was my gosh darn it.
It's our first fight.
Well, I'm always curious. And I just
after your question, let's go.
I'll wrap it after that. Are the coaches on your staff, are they full-time, or is it like what do they do? A good question. Yeah, like I always wonder that.
I'm very lucky. I have some coaches that are there all the time. I do have coaches that are businessmen, who are entrepreneurs, and they have, football is more of a hobby, and myself, I'm the defensive coordinator. Troy Kopp's our offensive coordinator. He's there all the time. But we do have some coaches that are not teachers, they dedicate their time. It's you go to Texas, you go to Alabama, you have to be a teacher in order to be a coach. And we're blessed at San Clemente High School. We have a great community with a lot of resources, and you have guys like John Beck. John Beck's our quarterback coach. He's, his resume, he works with Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Tua. He has a wide range of guys, and he's out there coaching our freshman JV kids just the same, and so we've been pretty lucky. A lot of coaches, from when you guys played have moved on. They're in the retirement era.
Yep.
But for me, I'm pretty blessed to have a bunch of guys that are dedicated to the kids and show up every day at practice and deal with me.
Yeah.
That in itself is hard enough, but we've been pretty lucky to have a varsity staff that it's primarily, some on-campus guys, but a lot of them walk-ons who they just, donate their time and just out there. Our O-line coach, Corey Actis, he's the first one there, last one to leave. And, those kids, they will do anything, run through a wall for that guy. And I think that's important. And maybe they're not all teachers. I wish they were. But, like you said, they're very successful businessmen who still donate their time and help out.
That's amazing. Well, that'll be my last question then, Brian. But honestly, we wish you so much success. Yeah. And we'll have to have you back on mid-season.
When's
or
our first home game?
Yep.
Our first home game is August 30th. So we travel to Chaparral to start the season on the 23rd. Okay. And then we're home against Oak Ridge High School. Awesome. That's our home opener. They're from Northern California. They lost to Folsom in the Division I state. Cool. CIF playoffs up there. Mm-hmm. So they're a very worthy opponent. Kind of a small segue. Their head coach was the coach at Del Oro when we played them for the state championship, and so they're going to be well coached. They're one of the top programs. They have a tight end that's a 5-star kid, and so they want to come down to Southern California, play a quality program, and we were able to make it happen. And awesome. So that'll be a tough home opener for us. And first guy I played Chaparral will be one of the top 20 teams in Southern California. So there's no easy road.
Oh, and then you're in that alpha league.
Yeah. Yeah. Our league is going to be tough.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Some tough
Where,
teams.
if people want to come follow you and on Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff, where can they find you?
The best one is on Instagram, Triton Football. It's pretty simple. We're also on Twitter as well, but I think our best one is Instagram with Triton Football. It gives you an inside look of our program, and we try and post highlights of our kids and our program, and that's probably the best way. You know, the old days of websites, people don't go to as much, but definitely Triton Football either on Facebook, on Twitter, or Instagram.
Awesome. Good
That's
luck
amazing.
this season, Coach. Thanks for coming on, and
Yep.
we look forward to coming to multiple games this year and cheering you guys on.
Awesome.
Yep,
Appreciate
yep,
it. Thanks
yep,
for having me, guys.
Yep,
Really appreciate
absolutely. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Again, we can't thank you enough. We know how busy you are right now, so thanks so much, Coach Ortiz.
it. Go Tritons.
Thank you for listening in. Join us for another episode next week, coming to you from our studio on Del Mar in downtown San Clemente. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at the San Clemente Podcast and subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode.